Hi everybody, today I want to talk to you about Ohm's law, which is a mathematical relationship between voltage, current, and resistance. Now if you don't yet have a good understanding of what these different things are, I recommend watching this video here first that will give you some analogies and animations to help you understand these concepts. So when you're solving equations for Ohm's law, you may sometimes need to solve for current or resistance, which requires a little bit of algebra. If your algebra skills are still a little weak, you may also use a triangle setup like this. And how you use this triangle is that you take your thumb and you cover up the value I want to find. So if I wanted to find voltage, I would take current and times it by resistance. Voltage equals current times resistance. If I wanted to find current, I would cover that up with my finger. And it tells me that current equals voltage divided by resistance. And if I wanted to find resistance, resistance equals voltage divided by current. One of the most difficult things for students in this situation is knowing which unit goes with which letter in the equation. What's particularly difficult is amps go with current, which is the letter I. None of the letters match. Ohms go with resistance, which is letter R. Okay, let's do an example problem. A toaster has a resistance of 75 ohms and uses 0.16 amps of current. What voltage is needed to run that toaster? Well, the first thing we need to do is figure out which version of this equation are we going to use. Well, in this case, we're solving for voltage. So we can cover voltage with our thumb, current times resistance. I always recommend you write down the equation that you're going to be using. In science, there's always a lot of letters involved when you're doing math and a lot of different units involved. So a strategy that I've developed over the years is to always list everything out, no matter the problem. This is not a particularly difficult math problem. You will later in science encounter more difficult ones, and if we can establish some good habits now, you will be in place to make less mistakes when you do science problems in your physics and in your chemistry courses. So here we have voltage. We know that that is what we're trying to find. Current, in this case, is 0.16 amps. And the resistance was 75 ohms. And then I start to plug in these values into the equation. Voltage equals, the current was 0.16 and the resistance was 75. And now I just multiply those together and it comes out to be 120 volts. Which makes sense because that is the voltage that a typical plug in your house has. So this toaster was designed to run on the electricity available in your house. Here is another example. An alarm clock draws 0.5 amps of current when connected to a 120 volt circuit. Calculate resistance. All right, so what do we know? Voltage, we know, is 120 volts. Current is 0.5 amps. Resistance is what we're trying to find. So I know the equation that I want to use is going to start with resistance equals. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to cover resistance. So voltage divided by current is going to give me resistance. So now I can plug in my values that I had before. (120) divided by 0.05, 2,400 ohms. So that is my answer. I usually also recommend boxing in your answers when you're done. Here's another practice problem. A circuit contains a 1.5 volt battery and a light bulb with a resistance of 3 ohms. Calculate current. Okay? Let's start by listing what we know. Do we know the voltage? Yes, 1.5 volts. Do we know the current? No, that's what we're going to be trying to find. Do we know the resistance? Yes, 3 ohms. So that means the current is what I'm trying to solve for. So the equation I'm going to use is going to start with I equals. So that means voltage divided by resistance is the version of the equation I want to use. Current equals 1.5 volts divided by 3 ohms. Current equals 0.5 amps. Go ahead and box in our answer. So if you use this strategy of always listing out what you know and what you don't know, then picking the appropriate equation, then plugging in, it is a very good habit that will serve you well in all of your future science classes. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to find other videos like this, please push subscribe.